Thank you. Welcome to Hyperfish HQ.
Yeah, good to be here.
Have you had a good week in Redmond?
Yeah, it's been good.
You brought the Texas sun with you.
We had a little bit of sun, yeah. Shockingly, it's been raining every morning, but other than that, yeah.
There was a news report that came out this morning that we've had the least amount of sunshine in nearly 25 years this year.
Really?
Yeah, my third year here, and that happened.
All right, well, it wasn't me, because I've been here.
So, Eric Shupps, SharePoint MVP for since I've been doing SharePoint and way past
forever.
then.
Yeah.
What are you doing these days? How will people know you?
Well, I think most people know me from the dev side still.
And the hat, which is not very...
Which is not here tonight, yeah. So doing a lot of app development and add-in stuff, and now with the SharePoint Framework model, and so that's primarily what we do. And
you have a product as well?
Well, we have several, actually.
Right.
Yeah, we have our own product for on-premise, and then we've got our partner products that we work with. We've just launched a bunch of new products inside of the Training Plus app that we have with Combined Knowledge out of the UK and some others we support. So most of the work that we do is app-related in one way or the other.
Right. So you're a good person to talk to around this whole notion of, I'm a SharePoint administrator, and what's this SharePoint framework thing? And developers that were giving me WSPs before, or sandbox solutions before, or SharePoint add-ins before, are now giving me this new thing. What should I look out for as an administrator?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a big difference if you're used to WSPs and the whole full trust model of bringing down the server to deploy code and to make changes and that sort of thing. So if you've traditionally been on premises dealing with that whole release and maintenance cycle, this is much more akin to sandbox solutions. And if you've been doing add-in development where deployment is done through the catalog, for example, and then you have the whole trust container that you have to be aware of around the consent framework of, I'm deploying an application, I need to consent as the administrator to allow this application to run.
Right.
Framework is interesting in that it's a bit of a crossbreed between what we know from the add-in model and what people are starting to learn about Azure. Web apps, whereas Azure runs globally in the app launcher, and the add-ins that we're fairly used to now are contextual inside of the site, and so Framework kind of crosses those boundaries.
Yeah, and so you mean like the app launcher, the waffle in the top left, where I'd go in there and I'd launch something, that was more of a all-up Office 365 web page experience, as opposed to, for now, the SharePoint Framework is more, I'm adding a web part to a page for now.
It is for now.
Yeah.
The broader vision is much larger than that, and I think it'll be more of a tool for administrators in definitely in intranet scenarios, any place that you're doing. They call it a pages and parts model, so we have to assume that there's going to be some customizations inside of the model, and will allow people to create more immersive experiences. Then the add-in framework was designed for ISVs, really, at the core of it. And it
store-led and everything else.
Yeah, it wasn't designed for you to customize pages or create an intranet-like experience, and the client web parts they weren't a great experience for users, but they weren't designed to be. They were just sort of
it was a different, and I think the security was more of a concern there in the isolation than the framework, which is like more your full trust, and you're running on that page. You basically have the context of Eric when you're running.
Well, yes, to a certain degree, but we still have to interact with the graph, right? So there's still, and we have the consent framework around what's available in the sites that you're working on, resources you can access. So that's why it's a bit of a hybrid between those in terms of what you can do, but it's definitely more user-focused about in context of what the user is doing or where they're visiting, be it a publishing site homepage or a team site that they're working on or whatnot, rather than that disconnected experience that we had with the add-in model.
And so do you find, like, we just had Mark Reckley in here talking about citizen development, JavaScript, and like content in the web parts and adding JavaScript into SharePoint libraries. And we were talking about the no script rule, which blocks those kind of customizations. Now, technically, the SharePoint framework is JavaScript too, but if you turn on no script, these things are going to run, which is a good thing for admins because it puts the control back to them, basically, right? Like they choose which SharePoint framework packages are in the environment.
They do, so they have to provide administrative consent for them, which is a good thing. I think that we still. So first off, I think for folks like Mark and the Mark and Mark Brigade, doing that citizen developer client side stuff, I think this is a really excellent model for them. Yes, it's developer focused. It's not for your average user just to go and do, but it's proper development on a JavaScript framework. That means you don't have to be on box. You can live within the restrictions that are designed for the service.
Yeah.
And they have much richer capabilities than they ever had of dropping script editor web parts.
And I think that's another benefit that, when we used to go to customers and talk about the provider-hosted add-in model, and you need to run a website just to get your add-in running. Whereas now with a framework, you can put it on a CDN as well, but you can choose to deploy all of the bits that are in that package into libraries in the SharePoint side as well.
It feels like it's running inside of the application. It feels like a SharePoint app. It feels like the full trust stuff we used to build, right? Yeah. Even though none of it actually runs on SharePoint, or doesn't have to. It can, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
It's much more the traditional experience about here's a web part and we're going to connect it to another web part and we're going to do these things and surface list data maybe in different ways, or do the weather web part. Those experiences that we got used to for the better part of 10 years or so, I think are coming back to us in a new, more updated way. Yeah. And I think that's good. It gives more capabilities to developers to build things on the platform. I think it elevates the citizen developer a little more with a better toolbox and better capabilities than they have without, as you say, all those really tight restrictions that prevent things from working.
Yeah, and then I guess the other aspect of it is you talk about new things. Like we have this notion of modern pages and the modern libraries, and then you have the classic pages and the classic libraries. You can switch the views and the sites. For now, the SharePoint Framework, if you've got a web part you've built with the SharePoint Framework, that can be added to a page through the toolbox in the modern page. But they've talked about other ways as well.
It supports classic pages as well. Or I should say classic pages support them as well. Yeah. Now, that probably won't apply across all the workloads that the framework is going to offer, because they really are designed around the new experience.
Yeah.
I think when folks see the new publishing model and what Microsoft is doing about bringing that back to being a first-class experience, they're really going to be excited about the amount of work that's put into that and doing it right in the cloud, and what they'll be able to do consequently with the framework. I think people are going to get when they see that and sort of understand conceptually where it is.
That's the penny drop moment of, okay.
I think they're going to get really excited about the things they'll be able to do that, quite frankly, we've been locked out of doing from the cloud for obvious and necessary reasons.
Since they've moved SharePoint up there, really.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other aspect of it is, for these things, if I'm building a web part that's running the SharePoint mobile app, there's a benefit there too.
Oh, there definitely is. Because now, or at least maybe not now, but the vision is that you'll be able to design your own immersive experiences on the platform, so that you can target what works right for your business. If you don't need all the SharePoint Chrome and all the stuff that SharePoint gives you out of the box to deliver whatever it is you're delivering to your users, you don't have to have that stuff. It's an optional portion of the UI. And you can deliver, say, targeted one-off applications where maybe the user needs a full screen experience, like on a mobile device, right? So working on an iPad, for example, you still have to deal with all the Chrome, and the buttons are small, and it was designed for mouse navigation, and so it's not a great experience. But rather than forcing yet another new UI on people, right? They've, I think, made a smart decision to let's stick with what we've got. We've made it as cross-browser compatible as you can with something as complex as SharePoint. But if you don't like it, replace it with whatever it is that you want to do on the platform without having to jump through all the hoops that the add-in model.
And what's your guidance for administrators that, in terms of like, if I develop a Tangua package, there's this trust element that because it's a full trust that they've done the right thing, and there's a few aspects of it. They could be manipulating the DOM outside of the web part that gets added in that page. Are there any things that you would say are huge things to look out for as an administrator with that relationship, as this is quite new with developers? What would your guidance be with that?
Yeah, there's really nothing new there, right? Administrators have always had to have a certain level of trust in the developers, that the code has properly been vetted and they're not doing the wrong things inside of the code. So there's certainly still a level of review and trust that has to happen there. I think they specifically have to be careful about third-party components, right? Making sure that those aren't doing things they're not supposed to. Not a lot of people do it. Code review is always a good thing, and just keeping an eye on even just a cursory review is better than
Right.
no review at all.
Yeah.
There's still some risk there. I think the good news for administrators, especially on-prem, is that it's not going to affect your infrastructure.
The farm won't come down if they build really bad code.
Right.
Yep.
The users may have a bad experience on that page,
Yep.
right? Or if they deploy something, potentially if we ever get to a point where we have sort of global deployment of components, they could affect maybe the overall UI, like a bad master page, for example, right? That can happen. But I think it's part of the trade-off. We've always had it.
Just something to be aware of.
I think we've done fairly well. A lot of the impetus is on us as the community to take those standards out to people and say, here are the best practices, here's the way you should, just like we've always done.
Right, in every single approach.
Yeah, in every rev.
Yeah.
And I think we've done fairly good about that. And that will continue, I think, to be part of the model.
That's cool. Excellent. Look, thanks very much, mate.
You bet.
How can people keep in contact with you? I mean, you're not that hard to not find.
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
Height-wise, look for the hat at the conferences.
BinaryWave.com or Aptigent.com, and of course, any of the various conferences that I'm at all over the place.
Twittering
easy to find. Twitter at eShupps when I'm on there, which isn't very often.
Yeah.
Facebook at SP Cowboy, but I'm easy to find.
Yeah. Cool, I appreciate it. I'm not going to stop you from getting more beer and pizza, and I can see you're itching to get in that Forza game and try and beat Brian at a race. So.
Yeah, I don't know how I'll do on that.
Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it.
As always.
Cheers.